Yeah, you're on the HillBilly Voodoo channel. What kind of crazy hillbilly crap do we got going on today? Well, this here is our wood chunker that we're working on. If you've been following along the project for the last few videos, you know that we got an auger style wood chunker. It's to deal with the yard debris and waste that we have in the yard here. We don't really want a chipper because we don't want the pieces too small that we can't burn them. So we're building a chunker here. Well, what does this do? So this screw turns and we feed the branches in like this, and it's going to chop these branches up into chunks that are as long as our auger flights here. That's basically what it's going to do. So far, if you, like I said, have been following along, you know that we've built the gear reduction. We built our auger. We have the bearings on either end. Now we need to build some type of frame that's going to hold this all together, hold that bearing and that bearing together. And we need to put a ring, a tube, some type of thing that's going to go around our auger that the branches are going to go inside and get chopped off on. So let's see what type of hillbilly voodoo we're going to have to come up with to create this stuff today. So hopefully in this video we're going to get this thing to a functioning prototype, more or less experiment with stuffing things in it type of stage here. It won't be mounted on the tractor yet, but hopefully we'll get it to a point where we can figure out if it's actually going to work or not, or whether we're going to have to start all over with this project. So I think first thing we're going to need to do is find some materials to build our frame, our chassis, whatever the hell we want to call. I think I have some more of this channel iron out there. Maybe not that big. Maybe some. I have some more channel iron out there anyway, somewhere in the piles of ground titanium. So let's go dig around and see if we can dig up enough. Maybe 2 pieces to go from here to there. 2 pieces that long. Maybe we should figure out how long that is first. I'll grab a tape measure here. Kind of looks like, well, let's go with 20 inches. So let's find 2 pieces that are about 20 inches long. What type of frame we could build to start putting this all together so that it's just not kind of sitting here in a precarious pile. Precarious pile. Yeah, that's a good mouthful. Okay, let's go see what we can find. So let's see what we can find out here for chunks of channel. Chunks of channel. Why am I having such a hard time speaking today? Weird. Anyways. I know we have some pieces left over from cutting apart an old truck bed frame. There's one right there. That looks like a pretty good chunk of channel on the back of that. And if I remember right, there may be some under this snow pile here. No, it's not under that snow pile because I moved it. Probably over in this other pile of ground titanium here. What do we got in there? Look around for some red reflective tape, because there was a bunch of red reflective tape on the back of that truck deck. Hey, there's some reflective tape, and there's a chunk of channel. Cool. So there's one piece there. That's, well, it's probably 2 feet long, so that'll give us 1 piece. We'll grab that other piece that was over on the ground, chop that up too. We should have 2 pieces that are long enough. I don't see anything else in here that's the right length or long enough. Might have to stick two shorter pieces together, but yeah, let's grab that other chunk and chop it up, and then we'll have that piece there, that one there. You see that one with the red tape, the really bright thing? Yeah, grab that one and that other one and see where we'll go from there. I got our two 20-inch pieces salvaged out of that steel. Ground all the paint and crap off of them. I'm sitting here underneath our pile of parts, and I've cut a spacer that I'm going to line everything up here so that it's square. I'm going to tack this end in first. Put that spacer in there. Square it all up. I'm just going to tack this side in. Now I didn't go with a full piece all the way across here. I'm just going to use the spacer that I cut, this thing here, and fill it in here. So hopefully this will go together fairly square, and then we can build our little mount for the bearing here. We got everything all squared up and all tacked together here. You see that's just temporarily tacked. And I built our little pillow block bearing type idea there. Bolted it in place. Now, if we grab this pulley, turn it, looks like everything's gonna work. Gonna go around, gonna do what we need it to. So I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna have to do some gusseting and things in the corners here, because this is gonna go through a hell of a lot of strain. You're sticking a branch about that big around, and it's going from freewheeling, nothing in there, to trying to snap something that big. It's gonna be a hell of a brutal thing. So I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna have to reinforce some of this just to keep it from twisting and bending and turning into a cheap lawn chair, folding up and falling off kind of thing. Now I need a tube of some type to go over the top of this auger. At the end of this tube, we need a ring, or we need the tube itself to be a fairly tight tolerance fit on the end ring here, because as it's feeding in, the branch is gonna get sucked in kind of thing. And as it gets closer to the wall, it'll be inside the tube, right? As it gets closer to the wall, it's gonna shear it off. So I think I have, well, I know I have some chunks of old well casing out there, and some other pieces of pipe that I picked up out of a dumpster that were kind of chopped up into weird shapes and stuff. So let's go and find out if they're going to be the right size around, for one, because I'm not 100% sure. And if they're not, then I guess we're going to have to bend something in this ring. Well, let's grab our calipers here and measure and try to get an idea of what the inside diameter we're going to need for this pipe or chute or whatever we're going to call this part of this machine. So what do we got there? And we knew our flights originally were 6 inches across, but remember we've stretched them, and if you stretch out a flight or a circle, it compacts and it's no longer the original diameter. So what do we got here now? Well, it's probably the closest area. Kind of hard to measure because it's like, yeah, kind of weird there, but what do we got here? About 5.5 inches. So if I remember right, that well casing stuff is a 6-inch diameter, but I'm not 100% sure, so let's go find out. Now I know I have a piece of 6-inch diameter casing that I'm going to be using for my Robson drive, and it's sitting right there. So if all else fails, we can use that one and then go try to find something else for the Robson drive, but that's a fairly long chunk. It's almost perfect for what we're going to be doing for the Robson drive on our off-road ATV here. So I'd prefer to not chop that up. So let's go outside and see what we got laying around that we can chop up. So let's see what we got laying around the piles of ground obtainium out here. And we have some rings cut here that I use to pour my little aluminum slugs when I melt down aluminum. So let's find out how wide those are. Now, I would say that's a 6-inch for sure. What does that say there? My calipers aren't quite big enough, obviously, but that's bigger than 5.5, if you guys can see. I don't know if you can see or not, but anyways, it's bigger than 5.5. So there's some pieces of ring there that we can use. Let's see what else we got laying around here. Some plastic pipes. Yeah. There's a piece under there. This stuff is obviously too small around. This is that weird piece that I was thinking about. I don't know what it was. Somebody's art project or something. Yeah. So, how big is that? Well, it's obviously bigger than 5.5. So if we take that and we build the inside of that ring up with weld so that it's slightly smaller around than our auger, then we can turn that down to make the end, this end here. Yeah, that'll make. So we'll fill the inside of this up with weld. Turn it down on the lathe to fit the auger perfectly. And then maybe we can cut one of these pieces out here and build our chute down on an angle like that. So the chute will come down on an angle, it'll feed the branch in. This will go around the auger. This end, or one of these ends, will be the close tolerance that we need to shear the branch off. Yeah, this should work. Okay, let's take this in the shop. I'll build it up with weld and then we'll turn it down and see if it's going to work. Let's look around here and see what else we might be able to use. And there's another chunk that's laying there on the ground that's could probably be used. Some old mortar shells laying here. Those are too small around. Yeah. An old cat idler wheel. That's probably too small around too. Okay, well let's go with this first. It's not super thick, 1/4 inch maybe. But if we're building up the end part with weld, it'll be thicker, right? Should take more force. We might actually even have to reinforce it even more because, like I say, it's going to be a pretty violent thing, shearing branches off. So yeah, let's stop yapping. Let's take this inside and see what we can build with it. Now, as you can see, I've built up the inside of here with some weld to a point where it's probably double the thickness that it was before. And I've kind of ramped it from the original diameter of the pipe, ramped it up to here. That's about inch and a half or so. I'm hoping that that's going to be thick enough for our auger to do its thing when it feeds the wood in. And I'm hoping that the wall of this is going to be robust enough to not deform too much back and forth like that when the branch goes in. So let's take this bearing out off the end of here and see if our tube is going to be tubular or if, yeah, tubular, man. Now we want the tight end tolerance on the back side where the branch is going to feed like that. So let's do, hopefully this goes on here. Looks like we did a pretty damn good job of guesstimating that machining. See if I can move you guys around here so that you can see it. So if you look down in there, we kind of, I don't know if you guys can see or not, but we kind of got like a paper thickness pretty much all the way around that auger. That's probably tighter than most of the tolerances I've ever had on even jet pumps out of my jet boats. It's pretty close for something that hasn't wore itself into place. So hopefully that's going to work. So now you guys can get a little bit better idea here. We're going to feed the branches in like this on this angle. This piece will be chopped out of here. There'll be a chute to feed the branches in. Once it touches this auger is going to act like a screw. It's going to feed all this in. Once it gets to this side here, remember we've ramped that a little bit. So ramp that in the inside there. So it's going to squeeze it and chop it off. We of course have to sharpen this auger. This deflates on the auger, but we're going to do that at the very last so we don't end up chopping any of our own pieces off here. But yeah, that should work. Now I'm thinking that maybe I better mount this tube shooty thing here to our frame in a way that I can unbolt it. Because I have a sneaking suspicion that maybe when things get jammed in here or we have to maybe fix chunks that are missing out of the auger, it'll be easier if we could just unbolt this whole thing and take it right off the end. But yeah, kind of slowly getting better at this machining thing. Kind of proud of that. So let's figure out a way that we can bolt this or mount this tube onto here by bolting it to this frame here. I'll go look around. Maybe I think I got some pieces of angle iron that we can bolt to here, get the tube all lined up where we need it to, and then just weld it. Does that make sense? We got that line bolted there. Weld that tube in the proper place. And then we can unbolt it from here and slide it. Yeah, that makes sense. So I'm going to go see if I can find some pieces of angle iron that are beefy enough that I can, yeah, figure out how to weld them on here. Now backing up here and looking at this more, we have to make this tube removable, unboltable, because that gear ain't going to go through that tube. It's too big, right? So in order to do anything to this, change bearings, do any type of work, grease anything, we're gonna have to remove this tube. So let's go find some angle iron so we can mount this thing on here. We got our chunks of angle iron bolted down here and our tube tacked, well, pretty much welded to it. Couldn't find enough bolts, so it's just kind of temporary in there for now, but gives us an idea. This is going roundy roundy. Our branches are going to be fit in like this and sucked in there, chopped off on the end here. I'm sure this is going to need to do a little bit of self-clearancing. It gets a little bit tight in one spot, but it's nothing major. If I can turn it with my fingers like this, it should be okay. So now we need the chute part that's going to be coming down into here. Now I found a piece of pipe. I think it's 4-inch. Pretty close to 4-inch anyways. Where did I put it? It's already cut off on an angle for something, and it obviously I didn't cut it off that long ago because it's not rusty. So I'm thinking that if we weld that somewhere in there, well, first we'll trace it out on the inside here, cut the hole out, weld that somewhere in there. That should be a good angle to feed our stuff in from this direction. Yeah. And we get that welded or just at least tacked in there, then we can fill in all these little gaps here with random chunks of crap that are laying all over the ground obtainium. I don't think it'll be too crucial. I'm sure there's going to be some forces down on the bottom here and some forces on the ring, but I don't know if this tube itself here is going to have a huge amount of impacts or anything on there. I do ultimately want to flare this out on the back side here, like this end. I want it to flare out and get bigger and bigger so that when you shove a branch down in here, it's just going to kind of, you know, the Christmas tree, you shove the blunt end in and it will suck all the branches and everything in with it. So that's kind of the ultimate thing, but this chute here I think will be enough at least for testing. So excuse me. Let's trace out what we think we need to cut here. Well, this is going to be pretty brutal, but we'll get the majority of it chopped out of there, and then once we get it tacked in, then we can do some grinder adjusting. So we'll kind of need to hack this out like that. Well, that's a pretty brutal looking hole that we got chopped in there, but I'm hoping that it'll work. Stick that in there like that. Get it lined up as close as I can. And yeah, I guess if the gap's small enough to step across, it's small enough to weld across, right? That's my theory anyways. So let's get that in there in a place that we hope it will stay. I got all my horrendously huge gaps filled up here with weld and smoothed out. Didn't turn out too bad. I'm gonna have to disassemble this and clean up all the inside here and transition out this edge so that it's more of a gradual thing than just a chopper off. But while I do that, when I take it all apart, I'm gonna also sharpen the auger so that we can actually cut things and not just smash them. I'm pretty sure it would take a hell of a lot of power to cut anything with a blunt, what did we figure out, 7/16 edge. Yeah, that's huge. So before we take it apart, let's run it with the drill and see if it's actually going to do anything. I'm hoping that I didn't warp this tube too bad when I welded it all together. Well, I can tell you this much, I wouldn't stick my fingers in there. Yeah, even with it not sharpened, I'm pretty sure that you would have a really friggin' bad day. Well, it goes round and round. I'm gonna have to shim this obviously because it sounds like the gears are not quite perfect, but for what they are is what they are. I'm gonna disassemble all this and finish weld pretty much everything on it because most of it's just tacked together here. And I probably won't take you guys along for that ride because sitting here and watching me take things apart and then put them back together again exactly the same way is going to be boring as hell. So I'll take this apart, finish weld it, and well, maybe I'll bring you back when I'm sharpening the actual auger itself. See what type of edge we can get on that to make it do its cutty thing. Getting pretty close to being a testable prototype. I don't know if we'll be able to test it with the drill. That drill's pretty weeny. But yeah, once we get it all finished welded, then we'll decide what we're going to do from there. Now in the blink of an eye, I got all our welds done and I got our auger sharpened up there and everything's reassembled here. Unfortunately, when I was sharpening our auger, I wasn't really paying attention to the edge here, and now we got a gap, which I don't know if that's going to be a good thing or not. The more I'm looking at this, the more I'm thinking that I'm going to need a blade that's going to be like an interference fit here, because when this spins around and feeds the branches out like this, even if there's a paper thin gap in between here, that's gonna, well, you're gonna have bark or whatever, that's not gonna get chopped off. It's gonna come out in like a strip. So I'm thinking that if I put a blade like that, that hangs over the edge here, and then maybe in a little block or something right here, so that when this spins around, it turns like that, and anything that's stuck in between the auger and the wall here will come up to that little block or whatever and get whacked off. I'm thinking that's something I should do before I even test this, because I know that if I test it and it doesn't work, I'm going to be a little bit annoyed and probably lose patience with this project. So let's put a little blade on there first and then test it. And if it works with the blade on there, then that's awesome. And then we'll never know that if it didn't work without the blade. Did that make sense? That totally made sense. But anyways, let's do that. So this is what I was talking about with the little blade thingy here. Just welded it on there. I haven't really welded it totally crazy like, but so if anything squirts out past the little gap here, hopefully this blade will spin around. Ooh, that's still a little warm. Anyways, hopefully it will spin around and hit this little stopper here, chop it off. That's what I'm hoping anyways. Now, I think I'll run out and grab a couple sticks, see if I can wrestle some from the goats before they totally eat them to nothing. And we'll test this thing out with the drill. I don't really have huge high hopes that it's gonna chop up anything major, with the fact that that drill is pretty weeny and it can hardly drill a hole. So, but anyways, let's go out and grab a stick and see what happens. Well, here goes nothing. Hopefully this wasn't just a big giant waste of time. Well, it looks like it's breaking everything up. I don't know if the little blade thingy here is doing anything, but let's try one that's green. This drill is pretty much dying, so. Yeah, like I said, drill no good. But it is actually doing what I want it to. That's kind of, holy. Crazy. Oh yeah. Let's turn it with a ratchet and see what happens. Well guys, that looks like it's going to be a real thing. Those are the perfect size chunks for burning. Not too small, not too big. You know, the dry out nice. The fact that that was green as green can be and it chopped it up, that's pretty awesome. Now the branches did wind around my auger a little bit, but that's probably because I'm not turning it super good here, but it kind of looks like it's going to do what I need it to. Huh. Yeah. Guess the more that you feed in there, the more it's going to suck all the rest of the stuff through. Well, that's pretty cool. Well, now all I have to do is figure out how I'm going to mount this on my little loader or tractor thing, which that's going to be a whole nother ball of wax, because I have to do a whole bunch of different, well, change around the PTO pump and all that other stuff. So that's obviously not going to happen right away, because I'm using the tractor every day. And yeah, that's the thing. But we know our chipper works. And yeah. I wouldn't stick my fingers in there, I can tell you that much. If it'll cleaver off that with that wimpy little drill that I could stall out with my hand, then I'm sure a 10-horse motor is going to power that just fine. So until next time, guys, use what you got to make what you want, and I'll see you guys later.